Hello you lovely lot, welcome back to another episode, Friday's episode of Bareham Engines. Well guys, I am proper organised today, you will not believe this. Not only is it not the end of the day and I'm doing a video, it's actually Thursday and this is Friday's video, so I'm well ahead of myself, getting proper organised. In a moment, I've got more news on the Cosworth, so I'll be going on about that, stripped it a little bit more. But first of all, I've been on the milling machine most of the morning doing a little job for Bob Dove. So Bob's been coming in here probably as long as I've been in here, 20 odd years. But he does these Coventry Climax engines. This is an old block for a customer, and you can see by a little hole in the crankcase there, he's had a little bit of a catastrophe. So what we've done for Bob is on this block here, we've got some holes in the side. Now I don't even remember in and out, whether that's the dry sump system or breather, I'm not sure. But he wanted them replicated onto this block here, which is a replacement block. And you can see I've done the little bit of machining there and I've got the dimensions absolutely bang on. And also what I do to these Coventry Climax blocks before Bob builds them up is helicoil every one of the head stud holes. So he supplies his own kit and his helicoils and I just do the job. So I've got that done for him. Bob usually drops jobs like that in and it takes me about a month to do them, but I've done it. He only dropped it in yesterday, so I rang him up today, told him it was done, but made sure he was sitting down first. So he's over the moon and he'll be in a minute to pick that up. Next guys, the Cosy. So I've stripped it a little bit more. I've left the crank in for a moment just to explain what I've found. So guess who was on the phone at 20 to 9 this morning? Yes, Steve, the owner. Well chuffed, which is great. We've had a chat. We've sort of come up with an estimate on the price and what we need. He's given me the go ahead. So what are we going to be doing with it? First of all, I wanted to just strip it completely, check all the mains and the big ends, see what we've got, make sure the crank's all right. Obviously we're going to be giving the block a thorough clean. Now I've had a chat with Stephen and he wants to go with the ductile iron liners in this block. So the pistons are mint. I did explain to him we could probably ease a little bit more out of these bores if they measured fine. Another set of rings and it'd be good to go again because the pistons are nigh and brand new, but obviously it'll be on his head if he does. We can't really guarantee that it's going to be all right without boring it. But he wants this, he wants for longevity. Obviously we're going to be pushing big power in this. It's in an Escort Cosworth that he's converted to rear wheel drive, so it's going to be a bit of a monster. And he wants 600 horsepower plus. So we're going to obviously modify it by the new style long studs and modify the block a bit for those. So they're just for the deeper ones that go in the core plug side. Now, the crank wise, I have checked all the big ends and the mains, etc. Now, first of all, I've noticed, although I've come to the conclusion now, although most of the machining, the decent machining like the squirters and the long studs and all the rest of it was done pre-2008, I think in 2008 someone's done a build on it, but they've basically just chucked bits in it without really doing a great deal. I've noticed, first of all, that the mains are a Pinto style. Now, the difference to the Pinto and the Cosworth is these are grooved all the way around. Now, though, on the Cosworth, they have got a plain bearing without that oil groove in the cap, and there's a reason for that, so it just spreads the load, obviously with the extra boost application and all the rest of it. If you run the grooved ones, the Pinto ones, what they do in time is they just eat into the crank. You can see here it's started to sort of see where it's polished, that's where it runs, and eventually just opens up the clearances and doesn't do it any favours. So you end up losing all pressure and it can spin a main at the end. So someone hasn't spent the extra money on the proper bearings because obviously the Pinto ones are cheaper. So what else have they skimped? If they've skimped on that, they certainly ain't going to start to do running clearances and all the rest of it. That's my thought anyway. So we're going to be running obviously a set of Motorsport Cosworth bearings. This thing at 700 horsepower with those bearings ain't going to last too long. The longevity is not going to be very good. So I thought what I would do is clean it all up, put it all back in and check the running clearance with plastic gauge on the mains and the big ends to see what we've got to start with. Now, as suspected, the main, we've got 2 thou, which is absolutely perfect. So it's near enough a 2.2 journal. So we've got 0.9 per inch, 0.9 of a thou per inch of journal size, which is absolutely great. We try and run sort of 0.9 to 1, maybe a little bit over 1 for a road application, but we try and tighten the clearance up a little bit for motorsport, so just holds the oil pressure and you don't need that much clearance. So 2 thou on that, 0.9 per inch of thou, per inch of journal, absolutely perfect. Now on the big end, I've measured all the big end journals, and as they normally are in these Cosies, because it's a standard crank, we are about 0.8 of a thou down below bottom limit on the journals, which if we were using a set of standard Cosworth rods, by the time we've sized them and got them on the correct size, you normally find they run about 2.5 thou running clearance, which on a road car you could sort of get away with, but you wouldn't get away with it on a performance application. So that's why we always say to people, we would rather, it's great having a standard journal size, but we would rather grind it and get the correct running clearance. Have a ground crank with the correct running clearance is better than having a standard crank, bit more meat on it, but without the right clearance. So this thing is, as they normally are, it's down below bottom limit, about 0.8, which you think is quite a lot. But weirdly, I've checked the running clearance, you can see the plastic gauge here, and we are running about 2 thou on that. So with it being a 2-inch journal, that's a thou per inch, absolutely brilliant. So I suspect, because that's near enough a thou down, and it's got the right running clearance, I suspect my normal theory on the Arrow rods is the housings are pretty tight. So I would say if you, well, obviously, if you had a journal size that was within limit, so you ground this and got it within limit, I would say that the running clearances are going to be down to near enough a thou, which is not obviously not as good enough. It will run, it will start, it will get good oil pressure, but you'll find in time it will just wipe a bearing. And we've had that 3 times with these Arrow rods, to believe it or not. So we would have definitely had to size those if we'd have had to grind the crank. But with the journals as they are, I'm going to measure them anyway, just to clarify and just to confirm what I think. But I think we got some tight journals. But on this, absolutely perfect, as long as they're round, which they should be. So yeah, bit weird that. This will be the 4th set of Arrow rods that I've ever seen that's like that. Strange, isn't it? So yeah, the crank, in theory now, we can polish this crank, balance it with the new, we've got a Helix clutch kit, a lightweight flywheel, so we'll be balancing all that with the front aluminium front pulley and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's all good news, guys. I'm going to order the liners, we're going to get the liners in, that'll take it back to standard. We can then buy a brand new set of rings, use those pistons because they are perfect, new studs, just all the general stuff really, all the normal stuff. The advantage of the liners as well, because they're top hat and you've got those grooves in the block there that the old wire rings used to go into, the top hat of the liners take that groove out, so we're not going to have to deck the block, which means we're not going to have to modify the top of the pistons again. So that's another cost save for Stephen and another little bonus, isn't it? So it's all looking good so far, guys. It is now Friday and it's actually 5 to 5. And I haven't even been able to pick the camera up today. That's what you get when Isaac goes on holiday. I've been absolutely working. So where are we? The Cosworth. First of all, this 5-cylinder Volkswagen, I'm sure I showed you this in a couple of videos ago. So this is that horrible jobby, which we are not building, fortunately. The customer is building for his brother. So fair play to him for getting involved with this. But this is, yeah, as I say, it's the cog-driven jobby. They don't tend to like being took apart, these things, because you've got a floating sort of insert there which holds the head bolt and also the mains bolts. A little bit like the Rover K16, but with 2 separate bolts, I do believe. But anyway, he's had a bit of a catastrophe with number 5, I think it's number 5 bore down there. So we have put a liner in it. Obviously, there's a disclaimer. with this because we put one liner in it, but you can see there it's a normal cast liner, whereas I think these may be sort of Aliasil bores here, certainly not cast iron. But yeah, we've had to put one liner in it. There was a very damaged bore. We've had to give the block a very, very light lick over. But as I say, there will be a bit of a disclaimer on that. But that is all complete, and he is picking that up on Monday. So that's a job done. While we're on the subject of liners, you see down there the Cosy block for Steve. I'm in the process of putting the liners in this. Yes, he has gone for liners. So frustratingly, there was probably enough meat to take out of these bores. They measured lovely. There was probably enough meat to take out probably half a thou or so extra, not run into any problems. Because we're going to be running big power, it's probably a good thing. But we could have still run a standard bore on this with another set of rings. But he wants to make this thing as bulletproof as we can, so we have gone for the ductile iron liners, guys. So I've just started to chomp this thing out. Now the advantage is with putting the ductile iron liners in, apart from the obvious, them being very tough and we can take it back to standard anyway, is these ring grooves in the top where it's had the machining done in the top of the block for the wire rings. The flange of the new liner actually takes that out anyway, so it means we haven't got to deck the block good and proper. There has been people that we have spoke to in the past that says you can just run a normal multi-layer gasket with those inserts in and they haven't given any trouble at all. But with us obviously doing what we do, we can't really do that. It's up to other people whether they want to do it, but we have to sort of make sure that they're all right just in case they're not all right. So yeah, that's the advantage with the liner. It does take out those inserts, which means that the pistons we've got, so there's the liners, they came today. They're the pistons that were in it. I've blasted them, they've come up absolutely brand new, so these are perfect. You wouldn't get a better piston if you bought them new. And they have got the cutouts in the top, so we haven't got to put those in now. All I'm going to have to do, obviously, when I fit these liners, I have to give the block a very light lick over, so I'm probably going to have to take a little bit on off the outside of these. Usually when I do my dummy build, usual stuff really. But what else have I done? Got a few bits in there I've got to clean up. I've got the new studs on order. Got a load of gaskets here, so we've got the belt kit, got the competition bearings, headset, bottom end set, WRC head gasket, a few more bits in here, and then I've been cleaning up things like the distributor today. I've done that, water pump. I've done the water pump. That's all cleaned up. And this is the thermostat housing, just things like that really, just sorting it out. So yeah, cracking on with the Cosy. So the bottom end is going to be absolutely indestructible on this thing, fingers crossed. But the cylinder head, it had a hydraulic setup with the 16 and the 14 cam in it, which is fine. But I spoke to Steve and he wants to go solid lifter. So unfortunately, we're going to have 2 new cams on a different grind with those solid lifters, as recommended by Ken Newman. So I'm going to get that on order on Monday and get that here, and I can set those cams. I'll show you how to set those up and do the clearances, etc. He just wants the thing spec'd right up as much as he can, really. So that's exactly what we're doing. And yeah, I have been cracking on. Although Isaac hasn't been here, I've had a load of paperwork to do today. I've had a load of other stuff, but I have managed to crack on with at least the Cosy, which is a good thing. And before we go today, guys, the con rods for the Cosy. So I said in the last video that I suspected that these rods may be a bit on the tight side. And the reason for that is because the crank was smaller than bottom limit, yet we were running the right running clearance. So I suspected that these were a little bit tight. I've tested one today. There they are. Torqued it up to the recommended torque. And sure enough, they are about 0.3 below bottom limit. And not only that, but they are slightly oval. So these things are going to have to be sized very slightly. I'm hoping with the new bearings, because obviously they were slightly older bearings, with the new bearings we'll still be on course for our running clearance. So that will be next thing to check. I shall be checking that on the crank on Monday and see what we've got. But yeah, interesting. Those rods slightly below bottom limit. So if you were just going to slap those into any engine and you were running top limit on the crank, chances are it will run, but you ain't going to have enough clearance. So that's very interesting. And my prediction was correct. But there we go, guys. That is it for another week. Friday. One more week without our Isaac. But I hope he's having a lovely holiday. I hope you lot have a great weekend. Hope the weather sort of holds out, because it's been quite nice today. But until Monday's video, have a great weekend, guys, and we'll see you then. Take it easy.